there, this is Dingo for Dingo Servo Mounts, and want to introduce you to the new Micro10 V2B. Now that might sound like we've made another major change. In actual fact we haven't. All we have done is changed the way in which the slider is driven by the servo. So I'm going to put one of these together and at the same time going to tell you the differences as we go along in terms of making the V2B or making the V2, as they are very, very similar. The first thing I want to suggest is that you start with a tray on your workbench. I always use a tray because it's got a little lip around the edge which makes sure that you don't lose little screws and things when you're putting things together. The other thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to use one of the new servos that we are now marketing, which is the Fitec FS90, sometimes known as Fitec because the company that makes them is called Fitec. So I'm not sure why it's called Fitec on the servo, but it's the company that makes them is Fitec. And we are now purchasing these directly from the manufacturer, so that we're not, we've got some control over the quality and so forth. And that's what we're going to be putting together now. We've brought these in as a replacement for the Hobby King HK15178, which we have been recommending for some time now. So that's where we are. So let's begin. First of all, I would suggest you go to the downloads page as you see it here and download a PDF document because some of the details that are in there are easier to refer to in terms of a document rather than a video. So always good to have belt and braces. So you can get rid of that piece of paper, we don't need that, and we can take everything out of there. And again, using the document that you downloaded, you can make sure that you've got all the bits and pieces that you need to build this up. Now, the first thing we do obviously is to file up the frame, and I have shown you how to do this, and I'm going to move this a little bit using a folding block which I have there. These are various folding blocks for different mounts we have, and I'm going to put a cut in from the last video I made of folding one up using that. But this one I'm going to fold up the old-fashioned way using the block of wood. So this is a block of wood. The reason I have it like that is so that I can fold those two wings without getting stuck on one or the other. So that's why I've got a narrow piece of wood. Nice and sharp. So you line up the dotted line of the foot plate and make sure that it's all nice and level with the same, and then just hold very tightly and push down. Now you will see that when you do that, it doesn't quite go to a full bend. So if you stand it back up again and just gently tweak it until you get to a 90-degree bend. No, that's not quite there yet. There we go. Got a nice 90-degree bend there. And making sure that you don't distort this piece here. Sometimes if you don't hold it down tight enough, you can distort that, and that will then throw things out of it. Then we turn the unit over so that foot plate is now standing up, and we bend the two wings down, one on that side and one on that side, so that we end up with the unit a bit like that. Now we can bring that a little bit closer in by hand. Once the fold is started, it tends to bend quite easily, but just make sure you don't bend it the wrong way because you can't actually bend it twice. For the demonstration, I'm going to use the folding block, which will also prove to you that the folding block still works for the Micro10 version 2. So the center hole is the one we put the foot plate, which is that bit there, in first, and fold that towards us nice and firmly. Make sure it's all the way down. It's also good to check that that is at a 90-degree angle. If not, we can just tweak it a little bit until we are at a full 90-degree angle. Then the second Oops, the second goes into there like that, and we fold it away from us, and the next one comes into the far side slot all the way down, and that's for some reason not going in there. I'm not sure why. Why is it not going in? There we go. Goes in there, and then you pull that down towards you, and that gives you a frame which looks like that. Then you need to take the slider, and that has one bend there on the end. Just need to put that down and fold it over to 90 degrees, and there we go. Now that is ready now to assemble the mount. But what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm going to put the block out the way now. And before I do anything else, I'm going to just put in the little screws here, because it's easier when it's loose like this. The 3 screws that hold the pin that's going to be your drive pin. You need to establish now whether you're going to mount this under the baseboard with the pin sticking up through the baseboard, or whether you're going to mount it on top of the baseboard with the pin pulling off to the side. The reason I say that is because you have 4 screw holes here. 1, 2 and 3 will be for driving from under the baseboard, and 1, 2 and 3 is for if you want to pull it. So I'm going to set this up standard for driving underneath the baseboard. So I'm going to grab my trusty screwdriver. What I do is I put the screw on the end of the screwdriver like that, find the hole and just run it in slightly, just enough to hold it. There should be 3 of these little screws in the back. Haven't lost any yet, and so we can put these into the right place. There's the 3rd one over there. And that goes into that hole over there. Right, now we have those screws in place, then it's easy to then put this in. Now before you do that, make sure that the sides will slide easily into the side slots. Occasionally you get a bit of a burr or something like that and it doesn't slide so easily. Make sure that it all slides nice and easily. Now we can push this in from the inside, one side, slide it all the way over, and then gently bend up the wings until both sides are in. Once that's in and everything is nice and square, you should have a nice, easy moving unit like that. Right, so that's that little bit job done. Now we turn to our servo and we open up. We have the servo and we have a little packet. My fingers are cold this morning, so let's just do it the hard way. Out of this packet we're going to need a couple of things. There we go. I don't need those 2 screws. Don't need this, this, this and this. They can go out of the way. This is the unit we're actually looking for. Now, with the Micro10 V2, you would then take this and fit it to the servo. Before we do that, obviously we need to center the servo, so we have our little servo tester here. Set that up with the black wire to the bottom. The light comes on. Attach the servo with the brown wire to the bottom on this side. Now our servo moves, but if we hit that button there on the servo tester, the center light comes on and it's now set in the center. Now, as I said, if you're using a Micro10 V2, you would then put this, if I can get hold of it. Always difficult when you're working through a camera. Like that, onto there, so we know it's set in centre, and we would then fit that into, pardon me, to the wires here. Then fit that straight into the back of the mount with its 2 screws, and we would then take the little self-tapper screw and put it through here into the horn, which is kind of what I've done on this mount. This is not the same mount, but it's the same thing. You can see the little screw there going into the horn. But with a new V2, we don't do that. So we take it out again, take the horn off. Now what we need to do is we need to take this little screw, it's an M1.6 screw, and we need to screw that in, and I'm going to use a smaller screwdriver because these things have got slightly smaller, and we need to screw it in from the back. Oh, when you've got cold hands it's not easy. From the back of the unit there, all the way in. However, if you're going into the first hole, you will probably find that boss there gets in the way of the head of the screw, and so you might need to just trim a bit of the boss away there. Having said that, looking at the way this particular servo horn is, I reckon I can go into the second hole quite happily and I'll be okay. Now I've noticed with this particular horn that the holes are a little bit smaller than they were on the Hobby Kings. Now I have a little tool here. It's just literally a sharp point on a screwdriver. It came as part of a set, I'm not sure why, but it's quite useful because you can put that into the hole you want and just give it a little bit of a push. Oops, that's not quite the idea. And that will just open the edge of the hole slightly, which will enable us to then screw this M1.6 by 8 screw into the horn there quite easily. And there she goes. Apologies if I keep bumping the camera. That's not the right screwdriver. Better. There we go. I'll screw that in from the back. So there's the boss, that's in from the back. Now the next thing I need to do, just to be safe, because sometimes when the arm swings it can catch on the wings at the side. So just take a pair of side cutters and clip off about 1/4 inch off the end there. I want to make it look pretty by cutting a couple of corners off there. And there we have it. Now we can take that and put that onto the servo, and I can then take my screwdriver with the little tiny baby screw that comes with the servo and put that into there. Always good to have a variety of screwdrivers because all these things have different slots. Some are Phillips and some are Posi drive, but there we go, that's in there now. So that's dead in the centre, and if I use my servo tester back again, I can then drive it from side to side. I've got equal amount of movement either way. Right, so we can get rid of the servo tester now. Come back to the mount. Now what's going to happen when we put this into there, that screw is going to fit right into the slot of the of the mount. Now it's always tricky to put this in, not because it's hard to get that into place, but because of trying to get the screws in there. You can see it's not very easy. So what I tend to do is to take one of the M2x6 screws and fit it into there first. All fingers and thumbs today. Put that into there. Then we drop the whole kit and caboodle in to the mount, making sure that screw doesn't fall out. And making sure that the M1.6 screw comes up into that slot. The reason we've moved away from the old way of doing things is twofold. One is that this is the other M2x6 screw, which then goes into that side there. It's twofold. So one is that you're not having a sharp-edged self-tapper running against the slot, and secondly, if something happens to the servo, it's quite easy to take the whole thing out without having to fiddle with that little screw, because those of you who've made up mounts over the years will know that that's the hardest screw to put in. So once that's in there, we can actually then test the whole thing. Get my servo tester back plugged in again, and there we have it. But like I said, if you had the old Micro10 V2, you would then put that screw in from the top rather than from the bottom. But that's all working nicely and gives you more than enough movement to move your point. Right, having done that, the next thing is to deal with the switches. If you're going to put them on, you'll have had two nut plates come in like that. They're stuck together. It's quite easy with a pair of side cutters just to split them apart. So you've got two nut plates. Don't worry about the odd bits sticking out the side. It's not going to affect the operation whatsoever. And then you put them together, the switches together with those and the M2x10 screws. And I'm going to do a blue Peter here and say that I've already got some, which I'm just going to nick off this other mount just to show you how they work. So you need to make one up left-handed and one up right-handed, so that they'll go on, and you make them up like that. You can wire them up, solder your wires on the whole 9 yards, and then at the last minute you just take them like this, slide them onto, you can see what I'm doing here, put the screwdriver down onto the mount, oh, I can see what the problem is. So I've got a bit of a bend there somewhere along the line. It's got a bit out of line. Maybe I caught it when I bent over the other thing. Check the other side. That's done the same on that side too. For some reason it's pulled over when I've done the bend. Worthwhile checking that out before you start trying to fit these on. It'll make life a lot easier. And then it should just slide in then. There you go. Now what you would do is then, before you even put these on, I would suggest you take these two these little screws here, the ones with the little flange on them. Those are the screws that are going to mount your mount to the baseboard. So pop your your pin in there between the screws, lock it up. Initially, always good to lock the middle one first, make sure it doesn't twist. Don't have to lock the other two at this stage. Put that into the baseboard, lock it up with the two screws, set your pin height to whatever you want, set your servo to move the right travel, to move your point, and then slide the switches in so that when it's at the end of travel, it just knocks the switch over. Oh God, there must be a bit further over, yeah. And then once you've got it into position, it's now just operating. You can then just lock it up. Whoops. That's the theory behind it. Just lock it up into place. Because of the nut plate, you don't need to have if the switch lies at a slight angle, it doesn't really matter as long as it operates at the edge of travel. So when when the slider moves away, the switch opens. When it moves in, it just touches that switch and makes it operate. So that's pretty much it. The new V2 or new modification to V2B with a different way of driving the slider to the original way. And new Phytech servo, which is the first time I put one into this mount, and it works like a treat. So we know that that works, and also we know that the mount goes together properly. So I'm David Ingleby, and thank you for watching, and enjoy using our mounts to power your layout.